couple of weeks out. It's good to see you, John. You know, for those that don't know, I did have surgery, but it was all good. It went really well, and it gave me time to reflect on life and well-being and just having time out. So it was a good nurturing process for me, definitely.
That's great. That's great. Oh, that's good. I'm glad everything worked out well. You look good. Your energy feels great, and I'm excited for today. See, get in there, do another Q&A. Well, welcome everyone to another Q&A Coaching to Flourish, and let's dive in. Let's get into it.
Well, it's great to be here. It's great to be here with John. And I have a question. So it's around coaching the problem and not the client. And we've heard this before. So there's an in-depth explanation around it. So I'm going to say the first part to you, John, and then just a bit of an explanation that we've had from one of our coaching students. So I'm finding it difficult to determine when I'm coaching the problem and not the client. For example, the client has presented a problem and they want to explore this in the coaching session. I want to understand the client's relationship with the problem, but my questions make me think I might be problem focused and not client focused. How do I transition from the problem to the client?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that even I, when I'm going through and listening to myself coach and putting down some of these coaching demos and really getting in there, sometimes I wonder this. I know this question seems like it is aimed at the problem, and what's the distinction there? Like why is that the question that's coming up? So I think this coach's question is right on, because sometimes understanding the relationship between a client and their problem or the presenting problem is a big deal. And that's something that does enter into that territory where you do feel like, I am now addressing this problem. The distinction for me comes from there's an internal shift. And I think once you experience it as a coach internally, then the distinction between coaching the problem and coaching the person, it feels very clear. And that internal distinction is that as a coach, if you feel the need to solve this problem in order to demonstrate the value of coaching, then you are definitely coaching the problem. And you feel that as a coach. And I can hear it when someone is, in training is trying to solve a problem. You can hear it very, very clearly. The shift comes from when a coach embraces this idea of, I want to make the problem almost more acute in the coaching session so that it brings up more emotion. It brings up just more stuff for you as a coach to explore and remain curious about. It's not that we're trying to diagnose or give our advice or try to label what's happening in any way. It's not that. It's more around staying curious and just seeing what comes up. So you're definitely working with the person, not the problem. You could still be asking questions about the problem, but if you are coming as a coach from the perspective of, I'm not interested in solving this problem. I'm interested in exploring this problem. That's the key distinction.
I'm not interested in solving this problem. I'm interested in exploring it.
Yes.
And one of the things that came up in an overview I was doing this morning, we were talking about who is the question for as well. Because sometimes I hear coaches, and I've done it myself in the past, asking a question to gather some data. Like, is this data being gathered here to learn more about the problem? Because you can ask like an information question, can't you, that is of benefit to the client, to the coachee. But if we're asking a question because we're like, oh, if I get more information here, it could probably help to solve this. So what words of wisdom do you have in terms of who the question is for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting question too. because, okay, so just to back up just a little bit, is there's, in terms of Coach Training EDU and in my style of coaching, and I realize this is my style of coaching. This might not be uh, officially sanctioned by the ICF or the health board or some official coaching body, but I would invite people who are coaching to be able to run through 30, 40 hour long coaching sessions where you as a coach do not ask a single information question, to experience what that's like, because there's such a draw in our I don't know, training, academic training, business training, life training. When you get out into the world, there's such a draw towards a knowledge basis and an expertise paradigm. And in that knowledge basis, expertise paradigm, the practitioner has an obligation almost to gather all the information. And that takes time. And that's not in a vacuum. That happens through a filter. That happens through a perspective. And I think the brilliance of coaching comes from the assertion that the practitioner doesn't necessarily need that information. And that information gathering activity, it also has an impact on the client in that it puts the client in information divulging position, and it further makes a rift between the status of the client and the practitioner, where it elevates the practitioner in the same way that you would elevate a teacher over students when the teacher wants to gather information on how much the student knows through testing. And this is something that's so baked into our system we don't even see it this way anymore. So what coaching says, and the brilliancy of coaching, and why I've devoted my professional life to it, is that it instead operates on an empowerment basis, and it assumes that the client knows completely everything that's apt and important in the client's life. The coach's job is to ask curious questions that further the client's understanding. And so let's say a client wants to work out more. As a coach, you wouldn't necessarily even need to know how many times does your client currently work out. That's how extreme this goes, because your client knows that information. So this question's coming from how much is it necessary for a coach to ask? And this is the current debate in the coaching world. The current debate is, how much information does a coach need in order to ask informed questions? This comes up even in the ICF. The ICF will say, did the coach ask questions to ensure the coach's understanding, which I think is debatable whether or not you want to go that direction. But in my training, in Coach Training EDU's training, I do think it's important as a coach to experience what it feels like to be 100% in empowerment basis. And then, when you're out there in the real world doing your coaching and you're getting paid and you're doing all the things and you're working with clients who are in this space, yeah, if you want to ask information-basis questions for yourself, then go for it. But at least by choice and from a place of empowerment. Like, there's a very specific reason why I'm asking this information-based question. Not I feel uncomfortable without all the information. So let me ask a question to increase my comfort. I don't think, I don't want it to come from that space.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a muscle to build, isn't it? Because especially people who are still consultants, have been consultants, they're used to gathering that information and data, aren't they? Right. And we know that if somebody's come with a problem, often that's a presenting problem, but that's not really the challenge or what might be going on for them if we start to look at them as a person. And I'm thinking about myself, and shared that core motivation as being a perfectionist, and challenge that's come up for me has been around delegation. I might bring that to a coaching session and say, my problem is, I'm delegating this work and it's not being done the way that I want it to be done. But actually, I know when I've coached myself or I've had coaching before, it's actually not about that. It's been about my high standards, my expectations, my lack of willingness to let go or control. And then when I actually look at my learning or being coached around that, it was not really about that specific problem. So how do you encourage coaches to shift more to the person?
I think it's I think awareness, even that it's possible to do that. When you listen to other coaching that does that, I think there's a surprising element, because it feels a little bit like the coach who's listening is almost listening to a different conversation. And the conversation that a coach is listening for is from the client's perspective, but it's more around what's it like? What perspective is my client in most of the time? What is that perspective? What's the emotional geography feel like? What does, where do I feel my client's energy, and where do I feel resonance? Where do I feel like they get excited? What kind of process values do they have? Not just topic values, but process values. Like, what is it that your client does every day that they don't even see, that to them feels so close to them, like water to a fish, that they don't even see it? The coach in that space can, show the water. And the problems, they don't even, from this perspective, the problems become a jungle gym or workout equipment. They become a tool to explore all of those things that's coming up for a client. It doesn't minimize the problem. It doesn't minimize the pain of it. It doesn't minimize the challenge of it or dismiss it, but it approaches the problem from a different perspective and a different default than what society teaches us, which is try to solve it as quickly as possible and offer advice. And I was listening to you were thinking about getting the YouTube demo videos up and rolling, and I was looking at some of these videos around the difference between coaching and counseling. And one of the counselors said that she appreciates coaching, she loves coaching, but she feels like it offers it's for people who just need some advice and a kick in the pants. And I'm thinking, wait a second, coaching does not condone violence in any form, so no kicking in any pants happening. Like, no. No.
Yeah.
And two, which I understand it's a colloquial thing to say,
Yeah.
but still, no. And two, no advice. No, it's not about advice giving. That's not what coaching is. So stop saying that, please. People who are trying to the difference between coaching and counseling. Coaching does not offer advice. And this is where I feel like the whole idea of the empowerment versus knowledge basis, expertise, this is goes back to the very beginning what we just talked about with coaching the client, not the problem. It's coaching itself, the nuance of it. It's not a monolithic field, but at the core of it, what I believe in is there is an empowerment basis where the number one thing is a coach offers a client their curiosity to get curious about the client's internal geography, that internal landscape. And when that happens, insights, brilliancies come to the surface. And that's what your client will use to develop action. That is what coaching is. So from that standpoint, does a coach need to know the info? No. The client knows it already. But what you do as a coach is you offer your curiosity, which I think is the most powerful thing and the most generous gift that one human being can offer to another.
And I know we're almost out of time today, because today's like a bite-sized version for everyone. But what I'm hearing is that key message around being curious, and especially being curious about a client's internal landscape, that internal geography. And I think when you stay in curiosity and exploration, you then stay away from wanting to solve the problem, because you're just being present and being curious.
That's it. Thank you, Raj. It's so good to see you.
You too, John.
Spend
Thank
this time
you.
together, and thank you, people listening, watching.
We'll see you all
Larger
next week.
community. See you next week.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye.